All right, so welcome to our February technical training meeting. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. On the screen, I've got the agenda for the meeting today. Got a couple of training opportunities we'll talk about, some new business items, and then the main topic for today's meeting is I'm going to cover what our current plan is to convert or transition from the now to the new online audit, which is the Weatherization Assistant version 10. And then, so we'll talk about that for a few minutes. And then the balance of the meeting, it will be for ASHRAE training and some training as it pertains to ASHRAE and exhaust fans. Some of the things I've been seeing out in the field that I'd like to cover and make sure everybody's aware of. So that's what we got going on. I'll jump in. So for training opportunities, I've got the first one listed there is we are holding it's our Energy Audit Course 3. Next time we're holding it is in March 20th through the 23rd. That is the class where you actually come and take the test to get your BPI Energy Auditor certification. That's the class that I limit to 4 students. 3 of the seats are taken. There's 1 seat left. Basically, if you want that seat, the first person to send me a letter from BPI and state prerequisites done in time will get that seat. So
along with a check made out too.
Anyway, so that one's coming up, and then we do plan to have another one, but it may be July, it may be August. So if you need that before then, you have a couple of weeks. And then the other one is just a reminder that the Rocky Mountain Center of Occupational and Environmental Health, I think I might have got that
Sounds right.
They offer lead training. The majority of the lead training that they offer that we need is in February and March. So if you need any lead training this year and you haven't already signed up for it, well, you better get on it today. Just a reminder, they're offering a few classes. I get to go to my refresher class on Thursday. I can't wait.
Seats are going fast. Operators are standing by. Please call now.
So those are training opportunities that I wanted to cover. Anybody aware of any others that would be good for this group to know about?
HPC, can I bring it up?
HPC, when is that? Is that the one in Seattle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a couple of national conferences coming up in April. There is the Home Performance, HPC Coalition. They're doing one in Seattle in the middle of April, I think, and then NASCASP is doing one at the beginning of April in DC. So if you're interested in any of those, if you'll do a search for their website and the 2023 conference, you should be able to find all the info you need. Anyway, new business items. I want to take a minute and, well, let Brad take a minute and just introduce a new team member that some of you may not have met yet. I'm going to turn my computer around. You may be able to see her, you may not.
And there's some of you who've met. We've been restaffing more or less for a little over a year now. We added on Matt Rogers last summer, followed by Justin Davison, which some of you have met now. He spent some time out in the field with some of you learning how to install work. And then we brought on Nicole Snyder, who's some of you have been interacting with through BWRs and different things. Some of you have seen her out with me doing programmatic monitoring this year. And then the last puzzle piece we've added to the team is Kaya Hill, who's wrapped up like a little old lady in a rocking chair next to a fireplace. And so what Matt's really asked me to do is tell everybody what they're going to be doing, so you'll stop asking him questions. And yeah, so
I don't mind that you ask questions.
Yeah,
we've just had a lot of questions like, what does that person do?
Yeah.
What does that person do?
And the fact is, none of you ever tell me when you hire somebody, let alone tell me what they're doing until we come out on site and monitor. So now you know how it feels. Yes, I'm that petty. No, seriously. Part of it, a person one time told me that you don't hire people to fill a job. You hire talent. You figure out what they can do, and then you figure out where they're going to fit on your team. And that's been an approach that we have taken. We've identified individuals that have talent, and as we've added them on, then we've adapted to where they fit on the team. With the way things are looking right now, my master plan, evil plan, I don't know, depends on whether or not I'm wearing my top hat and cape today, is that Kaya and Justin will eventually become technical monitors as part of the program. Matt Rogers, as you know, has already been following Matt Turner out doing monitoring. I have this thing about Matt's doing technical monitoring. I don't know. It's an obsession. But and that's the way the rest of the year is going to progress. Eventually, Kaya and Justin are doing the same thing that some of you are doing, which is learning and working towards getting certified. And once they're certified, we'll make some decisions on how we're going to adapt their roles on the team as well going into next program year. Nicole is traveling down a different path, and she's, like I said, learning a lot more about the programmatic. Moving forward, she's going to be doing a lot of the stuff on your monthly reporting, your BWRs. And so her emails show up asking you questions, just pretend it's my email address and answer with the same promptness, because she's still trying to help me do some of those same things about closing the month out. And so that's what she's going to be doing on the team for the foreseeable future. The other little tidbits and morsels of information is that the money for Dominion is routing in the contracting process. That is a nice, long, protracted process. And so if we're lucky, sometime by the late part of this month, hopefully your management will start seeing those contracts and we can get those executed. Likewise, routing at the same time with them is going to be the WAP bill stimulus money as well. So both of those will be going out hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'll see. Only other thing that's not on Matt's agenda is, believe it or not, we're in the first week of February. It's time to already start talking about the regular grant cycle for 23 money. The numbers for the 23 money were officially released Monday. It's, I think, 2.6 million. So it looks the same as last year. This year, we're looking at flat funding. The one noticeable change is the readiness money has basically doubled. So we were at around 156K this year. And so we're going to see closer to 200 grand. I don't have the program notice open to look at the numbers, but we're going to see a good doubling of that money. Fortuitously, tomorrow, the Secretary of Energy will be in Utah. She is coming to visit a client of Utah Community Action. And it is a home that we did readiness work with. It was a vermiculite abatement job that UCA did. I think we're all in maybe 12, 13 grand on abatement. And it allowed us to do a lot of work up in the attic. This lady was hemorrhaging energy through disconnected ductwork up in the attic for 10 years that she lived in that house. And they just finished the job up in September. I've only got 3 months worth of bills, but the preliminary data is looking really good. We're actually probably, for those of you that really want to see, of course, there's a chart. So now you know it's official because I have a chart. We're probably on track for about a 45% savings in decatherms monthly. So that's a significant. Her bill last December was about $256. This December was about 180, but that's because the Dominion price hike was in there, so that killed her on the dollar savings. But the decatherm savings is for realsies at about 45%. With that kind of result in mind, you coordinators that are out there, I think we're going to need to seriously discuss what 23's readiness money looks like And I'm thinking we've got to push ahead with more on the vermiculite abatement. We're seeing the big savings in decatherms there. Our job is to save BTUs. You know, we can't just say we're going to save dollars because we can't control the rates. But that seems to be one of our biggest dividends. So just keep that in mind. That'll be a topic of discussion when we have coordinators meeting leading up to the public hearing and then the public hearing. So now that I'm done stealing the show and the mic, Mr. Turner.
Cool. Thanks, Brad. The other thing on new business, I just wanted to remind everybody, Brad sent out about 2 weeks ago an program notice, Utah Weatherization Program Notice number 2 for the year. That's for your annual fuel costs, and it had an effective date on it of January 22nd.
Yeah.
So
Also, pigs came out yesterday, and then they found an error, and they're trying to correct them. So probably maybe next week, after I get on the other side of the stinking visit, we'll update the income calculator, and the new pigs will be out.
Yeah.
That'll make Romney happy since he's a farmer. Oh, wait a minute, he's a cow farmer, not a pig farmer. Sorry, Mark.
Anyway, so with
We can do pigs.
make sure that each of your agencies are operating off of the new fuel costs. You should have on or before the 22nd, you should have created a new library with the new fuel costs, and you should be using that to run all your audits. That will give our clients the advantage of the higher utility rates that they're paying. So make sure that you've done that. If you don't know how to do that, we videotaped.
Yeah. Did you play that on your
Recorded.
VHS or your Betamax?
We recorded a
People tell
meeting
me
where I
mine
showed
were
you how to do
DVDs.
that in June of 2000. It's called something about the setup library meeting. So if you go to our channel, you can find a setup library meeting that'll tell you all about how to redo your fuel costs if you need to. If that doesn't answer all your questions, you can reach out to me.
And he'll play it back on his Betamax.
Next item was just, I wanted to let everybody know that I made a little change to the ASHRAE calculator, and now it should work for all housing types. So hopefully you guys have noticed that. I think I made that change toward the end of December or early January. So if you haven't grabbed a fresh copy of the calculator, do so today. I wanted to give those who have been working on purchasing the new ASHRAE tube XRFs a minute to talk if you want to. Has anybody made any progress since the last time that you want to share with the group, or learned anything, or does anybody have questions about where others are at in the process? Feel free to speak up.
Our guys took the old one and the new one out on the last lead test they had, just to make sure, and just played with a little bit. It seemed to work fine. Then they set everything up, so the new one should be good to go on the next test.
Nice. So you guys have a new one and you've been playing with it. That's good to hear. Anybody have any questions that they've been wondering about with that? And it's okay if you don't. Hopefully you're all far enough down the road that you might be in the same boat as Bolander there.
We've been using ours as well. That seems to be working fine, so doing what it needs to do.
Did you guys
Yes,
put Burl's form on there?
What's that?
Did you guys put Burl's form on the gun?
Oh, yeah. And something out that was does that help? Is that what you're wondering about, Zach?
So the nice thing about Burl's that he's made, it makes it a lot easier. So when you go shoot for like a component on the gun, when you pull the trigger, you can put in the substrate, the component that you're shooting, what room, location. Makes it really nice. So for when you come back and you convert it to an Excel on the computer, you don't have to worry about doing the other test form that we normally have to fill out where the location is. It's already set on the gun. It's really fast and simple. So I think it's great.
Oh, thanks for mentioning that. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have put all that together because I don't have a gun to play with. So
Don't know how,
Or-
I don't know if all you other people have put that form on your guys' gun, but I would recommend it.
cool.
We used
Thank
one of
you.
the ones that the salesman sent out, and it seems to be doing good as well.
Okay.
Have any of you guys sent your old guns back yet?
No, we haven't yet.
We have not, no.
Okay. The guy there at Thermo Fisher, it's just sends you a paper, and it's a pretty easy process. So if you still need his contact information, let me know. I'll get it to you.
That same guy that you shared the info earlier with, right?
Correct.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. Excellent. All right, well, we'll jump into the main topic for today. The first part of that is I just wanted to talk to the whole group about what our transition plan is to go from the old neat MIA audit to the new online version. So right now we have a goal to make that transition by July 1st of this year, if everything goes smoothly. We do not have to do it by July 1st. We could do it by July 1st of the following year, but we would like to get it going now. So as long as it's working properly and everything goes well, that is what we're shooting for right now. This chart is, I put all the information that I currently have about what the transition should look like. I think as we move down the road that a few of these pieces might move around a little bit and the picture will get clearer in some areas, but this is what I know so far, and this is what it ought to look like as we move forward. So in the next week or two, I'm going to reach out to each coordinator and talk with them about who they would like to have on what I'm going to call the beta team. I want to assemble a beta team of one auditor from each agency, and that auditor will begin to play in the new audit in the sandbox. The beta team will probably meet in person together for our first meeting, and then we'll probably meet twice a month going forward, just on a webinar of some sort, where we will be talking, figuring out everything in the column below here, and trying to learn what we can about how to implement the new audit. Some of the stuff I've dabbled with so far, we're basically going to have to learn how to set up the new setup libraries. The beta team members, they will need to continue to just do their normal job as an auditor and go out and run audits every day. But then in addition to that, I will ask that they will run the audit in both the old audit and the new audit, and compare the two so they can begin learning what the differences are. There are differences. There a few years ago when we got to play with the new audit, there were no differences, but there are some differences now. One of the differences is that there is a way in the new audit to basically do a fuel conversion right on the heating tab. And we need to play with that. We need to wrap our minds around that. And we'll probably write a little bit of policy about that. So the beta team's going to help figure that out. We've already taken a major step on this, but I'd like to standardize the names of all of our itemized costs across the state as much as possible. And we're going to follow what is on the A07, the health and safety form, that naming convention there, but we'll be working with the beta team to make sure all the libraries are set up following that. We'll be working with the beta team to gather, as part of the contract, so the Department of Energy has a contract with Oak Ridge National Laboratory to make this new audit tool. And as part of that contract, they also want Oak Ridge National Laboratory to help all of the users to do a data import of all their old, well, not of some of their old data. We'll be deciding how much of the old data, the old version 8 data we want, and the beta team will be helping us to collect that so that we can work with Oak Ridge to do a data import. But yeah, we'll be basically determining whether or not an effective date of July 1 will work, and if this timeline needs to be adjusted, we'll be documenting lessons learned and best practices so we can figure out how to teach the rest of the program moving forward. And then the rest of the timeline, so the beta team, I'd like to assemble them in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll just start working on stuff together. Once we know and we feel comfortable with actually telling DOE that we are going to do a July 1st date, then we will notify our project officer. We'll work with Oak Ridge to actually switch it over from being like a sandbox or I don't know what the right term is. Basically, it's the audit tool, but they're going to delete everything, and then it'll become the official audit tool. Where now, when we run stuff in there, those will be real audits, and it won't really be a play environment anymore. So we'll have them flip the switch. We'll begin teaching all of the energy auditors at each agency. The beta team will be responsible to train the energy auditors at your agency. And we'll be sending some of the documentation that DOE needs us to send to them to show that we've got the official setup libraries and everything set up the way they're supposed to. And then, you know, we've got to do all of that before July 1st, so that on July 1st, we can begin running all of our audits just in the new audit software, not in the old one. And then we have basically a 6-month period after we've transitioned over that we can work with Oak Ridge to do that. We get to do a one-time data import. So that's what that last step is on the process. But anyway, I still have 100 questions myself, but hopefully this gives everybody a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be working towards. And coordinators, hopefully, as I've talked about the responsibilities of the beta team, you've got somebody in mind that will be a good fit there. I'll reach out to you and we'll work together on that. Anybody have any questions on this? All right. Next thing I want to talk about is as I've been out monitoring, I've noticed a handful of things going on with ASHRAE. And I think we'll do a little more ASHRAE training throughout the year, but I wanted to address a couple of things that I've noticed. I wanted to address them right now so that we can correct some of those things that we've been seeing out there. And so to start with that, just a couple of general ASHRAE things. The first one is this guidance from the ASHRAE standard about the control or the switch for any whole building ventilation or exhaust fans or whatever you've got. It says that the control must have a readily accessible manual on-off control. It says that it needs to be accessed quickly and easily without having to remove panels or doors, but that it can be integrated inside of a fan or a control that requires the removal of a fan cover or a switch cover plate to access it. So I've noticed a bunch of the agencies are using the switch that you have to take the cover plate off and then you can adjust that. That's okay. That meets this definition of a readily accessible manual on-off control. And even the oven range hoods that you have to open up the panel. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word panel. You have to open up the cover to make an adjustment to it. That's okay. What the standard is saying is that you shouldn't have to, like these panels that we'll make out of a board and we put 4 screws in them and attach them to a wall. You shouldn't have to remove that type of a panel. And hopefully the last bullet helps clarify this as well. It says that they can't be buried in installation or otherwise inaccessible. The switch shouldn't be up in the attic somewhere where they'd have to climb up a ladder and open the attic panel and get in there. So I haven't seen any issues with that. Well, I haven't seen any issues with that for a while. I think we're doing good there, but I just wanted to cover that as part of the standard. The other part of the standard when it comes to controls is it says that the control for the dwelling unit ventilation must be labeled with text or graphics that clearly indicate the ventilation system's function. And I grabbed these two images off the interweb. I felt like they were good examples. This one says primary ventilation system, and this one says fresh air, and it has a picture of fresh air. And you probably can't read it at all, but at the bottom of it, it says leave on unless outdoor air quality is very poor. So I feel like both of those give the occupant a little bit of an idea of what that switch is for. Hopefully it'll help them remember if somebody new moved in. They might scratch their head about this one. This one would probably be a little easier to understand. So I'd ask you at all of your agencies to ask yourselves, are we putting labels on our controls? And do those labels make sense to the lay person? I did see a label recently that said ASHRAE fan on it. And to the lay person, that probably won't mean much. So maybe rethink what you're putting on that label if you would. So it meets the standard, but you know, give some thought to making that a little clearer for our clients. The other thing, this one I've actually seen a couple of issues with, and I wanted to talk about it. I don't know if you guys are aware, but clothes dryers are required to be exhausted directly to the outdoors as part of the ASHRAE standard. If you read the ASHRAE standard, it's in the section 6.3, and this is exactly what it says. And then it has an exception for condensing dryers. If somebody has a high efficiency condensing dryer, they don't have to be exhausted at all. But most of our clients' clothes dryers blow air out the bottom of them, and they need to be exhausted to the outdoors. But yeah, I came across a couple of houses recently where I was out monitoring, and one of the clients brought it to my attention that they didn't think their dryer was venting to the outdoors. And as we dug into it, we found that the client was correct. It was, although there was a termination, when you turn the dryer on, nothing came out the termination. It had somehow gotten disconnected. And another one, I recently was going through a file, and in the file, the auditor or the crew, I can't remember which, it was written on there that the dryer terminates underneath the mobile home, but there was not enough room under the mobile home to get under there to work on it. So the note was basically saying they left the dryer venting directly under the house. And what I want to point out to everybody is that DOE has tasked us with making sure that every house we weatherize complies with the ASHRAE standard. And that includes clothes dryers. So if you leave a house where the clothes dryer does not actually exhaust directly to the outdoors, that house is not in compliance with the ASHRAE standard. So if you run into that type of situation and you are limited on room and space, you're going to have to think outside the box as to how to vent that to the outdoors, whether that's changing your method of running the ventilation under the house or looking for other routes for the vent to run through. But just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. That is an important part of the standard. This one's just for fun. I haven't seen any issues with it, but carbon monoxide alarms is also part of the standard in section 6.9. In order to comply with ASHRAE, we are supposed to have carbon monoxide alarms in all of the homes that meet the current code. So, which is one alarm on each habitable level. And it also specifies it has to meet the NFPA 720 standard, which is, it's got to have the digital readout on the screen, and it's got to have the, is it a 5 or a 10-year battery? I think it's 5.
It's a 5-year sealed compartment.
Yeah.
I remember right.
Anyway, so I think we're all in compliance there, but just fun fact, carbon monoxide alarms are part of meeting the ASHRAE standard. So any questions on those couple of items before I move on to this next thing I want to talk about? Okay, so the other thing was I've noticed something at multiple agencies on many homes, and it's just had me wondering. I've asked a few of you some questions about it, and I just want to talk to the whole group about it in case anybody else has run into this situation. So on the screen, I have a wiring diagram Brad, the electrician, don't look at my wiring diagram. It might not be up to code, but here's a wiring diagram. This is a typical exhaust fan. This is in most homes. If there's a fan in the bathroom, this is probably what's going on behind the plaster. There's a service panel somewhere. There's a wire running from the service panel to the junction box that holds the switch. Inside there, the wires are spliced like so, and then the wire runs from that junction box over to the fan. When you flip the switch on, the fan turns on. When you flip the switch off, the fan turns off. Typical wiring. And then we come along, and if we are going to replace that fan with the Panasonic Whisper Green Select, which is kind of our go-to fan, then this is what we do with the wiring. And we actually, that same wire that comes from the service panel to the little junction box that holds the switch, that's where we splice the wires together. And we use the wire that was running between the switch and the old fan to just hardwire essentially and power the new fan. And the new fan's smart, so it's okay that we're hardwiring it. That's the way it's designed. And then it has this cool little multi-speed module inside of it. And in order to get that thing going, we have to run an extra piece of Romex between the switch and the fan so that it can control the multi-speed module. And that's what we typically do to get this thing going. And I guess before I get into the issue that I'm seeing, I want to talk about how this fan works. So inside the fan, it's got a couple of things going on. One of them has this pick-a-flow switch, and that's essentially the speed for our on-demand fan. Like if it was just like our local exhaust fan, where you walk into the bathroom, you flip on the switch. When you flip the switch on, then this fan is going to ramp up to whatever speed you have set on the pick-a-flow switch. And on these Panasonics, it's got a different speed for different models. We typically end up using the 05-11. So that has an option for 50, 80, or 110 CFM. And this picture is showing it at 80. So if we've set this fan up in this home, somebody walks into the bathroom and they flip that switch on, then what it's going to do is it's going to ramp this fan up to 80 CFM. And then when they flip the switch back off, then it depends on what they have the multi-speed module set at. If I can get to the right screen here. The multi-speed module has two dials on it. One of them is for the continuous ventilation. The other one is the delay timer. Is that what it says? Delay minutes. Something's over top of that. Anyway, so this one's showing that it's got delay minutes of 20 minutes. So when somebody flips the switch off, the fan will actually stay on whatever the pick-a-flow switch is set at 80 CFM for an additional 20 minutes. And then once the 20 minutes has passed, then the fan will slow back down to whatever you have it set on over here on the left-hand side for the continuous ventilation. And as pictured here, this fan is set to run at 50 CFM continuous. So this is a great strategy for continuous ventilation because the fan will run continuously all the time at 50 CFM. And then when somebody goes in and uses the bathroom and they want to flip that switch on, it'll speed up to a higher speed for a little while and then slow back down depending on how it's set. And that works great. As I've been out to agencies this year, I'm seeing a lot of this set up. And what this is we've got our Panasonic Whisper Green Select set up. But instead of just having a regular switch, the agencies are putting the air cycler smart exhaust switch into the system. And I think that the reason they're doing this is that it is either difficult or not possible to run that extra piece of Romex. But my question is, when you do this, what is it doing to the multi-speed module?
Why are you wasting your money?
Disabling it.
Why are you wasting money on a module fan
Yeah.
to navigate that? You're paying more. You can buy a like that runs off a normal switch for less than the module.
So for us, I mean,
Yeah.
we use the motion sensor. We bypass the switch entirely. We don't run any new Romex. We just put a motion sensor in there. It's $30. That way, when the client walks in, fan kicks on, ramps up, and then they walk out. Whatever we have our delay set to, it'll ramp back down to its continuous CFM.
Totally like that.
So we just take the switch out entirely, hardwire the fan directly, and
You're still having,
you don't need a switch. There's no point in having the switch.
or do you still have to run the extra piece of Romex?
No, you do like you have here with the two reds individually wire nutted, so they don't touch. They can't touch, or else it will kick on high. So we do it like you got there, but then we just remove the switch entirely and then put a motion sensor in it. The motion sensor acts as your switch.
Okay.
Yeah, they're designed to operate that way.
So it will run continuously. If this is set at 50, it'll run continuously at 50 without this signal wire.
Right. Yeah. Until the motion sensor senses you, then it'll ramp up to that 80 CFM that you have it set to. And then when you walk out of the bathroom, whatever your time delay is, say it's 5 minutes, 5 minutes later, it'll ramp back down to the 50 or whatever you have it set to. And that's the whole point of the plug and play. That's why they have the motion sensors.
Like that. That's a great strategy. And you guys may be aware of others as well as I go through this, but as you heard Brad talking, my whole point is this, that, and what Zach said, you're essentially, if you wire it up this way, you're essentially making this multi-speed module obsolete. Like you're not using it
You
at all.
bought a fan that costs more and you're not using the feature.
Yeah. Now the smart exhaust switch is a nice switch. It is smart, but we now have 2 smart modules and we're only using one of them. The smart exhaust switch is a good way to do the,
Existing fan.
is it intermittent? Is that the right term?
I think those will set up your
We have continuous,
too, won't
no, they, well, if you turn it all the way on, they do intermittent. This is how the smart exhaust switch works. So it's got the same delay minute dial. So you can turn the delay minutes to 10 or 20 minutes. And if somebody flips the switch on and then they switch it back off when they leave the bathroom, it'll keep running for the, 10 minutes or whatever you have the delay switch set at. But they don't control the speed of the fan at all. All you have going on is that whatever you've set the plug or pick a flow switch at, so this is now at 80. When this thing is switched on, it's going to run the fan at 80 CFM. When it's off, if there's delay minutes, it'll keep running the fan at 80 CFM. And then on the, sorry, can't remember which way to scroll. On the right-hand side here, it has a ventilation minutes, and you can just tell it how many minutes per hour you want that fan running, but it's still only going to run at 80 CFM. And the way that it works is if you have it set to ventilate the bathroom for 20 minutes out of every hour, at the top of the hour, it is off and it will stay off until there is only 20 minutes left in the hour, and then it will kick on and run for 20 minutes. And the reason it does that is in case somebody goes in and uses the bathroom, it starts at the top of the hour. If somebody goes in and uses the bathroom for 5 minutes, so they flip the switch on, left it on for 5 minutes, and then they flip it off, and the delay minutes is set at 10, so it'll run for 10 more minutes. So now it's already run for 15 of the 20 minutes that you needed it to. So then it will stay off for the remainder of the hour, except for the last 5 minutes it kicks on and runs. And so that way it ensures you get your 20 minutes out of every hour, regardless of how many times the bathroom's been used. That's how that one works. It's nice for an intermittent strategy, but I just went onto the interweb and I grabbed the lowest retail price I could find for this Whisper Green Select and the lowest retail price I could find for this. Hopefully you guys have negotiated better prices than these. But the combination of these is $280. You can buy the Panasonic Whisper Grain Select without this module in it. It's a little bit cheaper. It's $21 cheaper. So if you're gonna use the air cycler in the system as an intermittent fan, or if you are running into those issues where you can't run that extra piece of Romex, then you should consider having this on your shelf as well as this. Or you could consider buying just this, and this is sold separately, and then you could plug that in when you need it. Or another option is the Panasonic Whisper Value. So this is also the Whisper, the Thin, they've renamed it. This one's a great fan to have on your shelf. So this one has the pick-a-flow switch inside. It goes 50, 80, and 100. It doesn't go up to 110 like the other one. But it was tested at less than 1 zone at all 3 of those speeds. So it meets the ASHRAE standard for whole building ventilation. It has a 3 3/8 inch deep housing, so it can fit into a 2x4 wall. It has a UL listing to be installed in a ceiling or a wall. So this one's very versatile. The one thing you need to keep in mind though with the wall install is that it must be installed 5 feet above the ground or higher. And it has to be installed with the duct adapter pointing upward. So if you're working on an 8-foot wall, you have some limited space on how long your duct can be and where your termination is going to land on the exterior wall. But that's not a bad tool to have in your toolbox if you need it. And
Yeah, just gonna say, so ours, we can't switch between 50, 80, and 100, but we have a bunch of the 80 CFM ones. We'll be happy to give away to another agency
gotcha.
because they are loud. They're not quiet by any means.
Are they this brand or are they a different brand?
Panasonic. I just pull it up. It's Panasonic FB08 VS1. So it just doesn't have the option between 50, 80, and 100. It's just 80. But they're not quiet by any means. So we don't install them for that reason.
They are Whisper Value.
Do they say Whisper Value on them?
No.
Gotcha. Well, that's so, and I hope this doesn't just feel like a Panasonic commercial. I just pick Panasonic because I know everybody uses them. You guys are welcome to use any product that is out on the market. You have to make sure that it meets the ASHRAE standards. And the big one is the zone rating.
Matt, with ours, the Panasonic, when Lauren bought ours, he couldn't afford the Whisper, so we just bought the Value.
I gotcha. Well, I'm glad you guys have recognized the issues there. They could be used as local exhaust fans if you ever were, if that was your strategy, if you were just putting in a local exhaust fan to decrease your local exhaust deficit. But I think your opportunities there are slim. So, but anyway, I just wanted to point out, if you be selective about what equipment you're using, be smart about it, I guess, not selective. Then you can save a little bit of money here. This Whisper Value, the lowest retail price I could find the other day on the internet was $95. So comparing it to this one, there is some savings there. I know you may be thinking, well, Matt, and you're tripping over $20 here. The issue that we have as a program with this one, we are tasked to look out for waste, fraud, and abuse. And putting 2 smart modules into a house and only using one of them starts to look a lot like waste. If it happened once in a while, it would be pretty understandable. But as I started looking, I was seeing it in every single house at a couple of agencies that I went to. And that's really hard to explain away as not being wasteful.
You're throwing away $65 because you're putting a $65 switch in that doesn't belong there.
Yeah. And if you don't put the switch in there, you do have to pay an electrician to run the extra Romex, and you know, I know there's real costs there, but I hope you guys are seeing the principle, and I suspect there are a few other areas within the program that are like this. And if you guys are aware of any areas where there is some waste, do the extra work to fix it. It's okay if you have all 3 of these fans on your shelf and you guys come up with smarter strategies and use the right tool for the right job. And if you know, you find that some of these just don't ever work, then stop buying them and find a good strategy that will work well. So anyway, questions on this one?
I just want to throw something out there also. So we've been tracking what's been costing to put in these fans and causing the water heater backdraft and needing an HTP and all that stuff. So
yeah.
So anytime right now we're doing over 2, like 3, if we need 3 fans, we'll try to put an HRV in the best we can, or even depending on where the CAS is, if it's already close to backdrafting, or you know, is close to the minimum acceptable draft pressure, we might even look to just do an HRV then too. So with 3 fans and an HTP, we're averaging $4,000.
Yeah.
If we can install the 1 HRV and not replace the water heater, we're at $1,741. So it's just also something to think about as you're thinking of not being wasteful as far as your budget. If you can do that HRV, and now oftentimes you just don't have the place for it because they do condensate. They can't be in an attic. You know, so you're looking for a laundry room or a big enough CAS. That's the hard part, is finding a CAS big enough, but you can find somewhere to put it. It'll save a ton of money.
No, I appreciate that. That's an excellent point. If I could make one point of clarification on that. When I'm looking through a file, the trigger that allows you to fix or replace something is going to be the failed worst case draft test. So be very careful if you think it's close, if it's passing per our standard, that you are not justified in replacing stuff. You need to wait until it fails the worst case draft test in most instances. So I want to talk about the HRVs a little bit more. I've got a slide in a second, but a couple other things have come up. I want to remind everybody, I think I've seen these at almost every agency. Air King does have a range hood fan that's Energy Star certified, and it meets the ASHRAE standard. It's below the 1 zone sound level. They offered in white, black, and stainless steel, and they offered in 24, 30, and 36-inch widths. So if you ever get into that situation where you can't figure out where to put that whisper green that you love to put in the bathroom, or you can't go through the roof because it's going to cause problems, maybe take a look at the stove. If you're in a mobile home or something that's starting to look more like a camper, don't forget that they do offer it in 24 inches. So maybe that's a good solution for what you're running into out there. The ERVs, HRVs, I like what I've been seeing that Jesse's been installing up there in Bragg. The big, and I don't know the maker of the model, but those bigger HRVs or ERVs, whatever they are, they seem to work well if you can find the right place to install them. This one, I would caution you guys against using this one. This one doesn't seem to fit in most situations, but I've seen this one installed in the field in a couple of houses already this year, and it didn't work. It didn't, the auditor had a strategy, and this didn't quite meet the needs of that strategy. Couple of things to bear in mind with this Panasonic Whisper Comfort is that it is designed to have a maximum intake of 30 CFM and a maximum exhaust of 40 CFM. And per the ASHRAE standard, the way to calculate how much air that's moving is you actually measure both the intake and the exhaust. if you actually measured 30 on the intake and 40 on the exhaust, then you add them together. So 30 plus 40 is 70, and you divide by 2. So this fan, the maximum you'll ever get out of it is 35 CFM. And what we found in the field is when you start hooking some vents to the end of that, it drops that number drastically. I have yet to see
Changes the
one.
direction.
Yeah, I have yet to
Put
see one
90s.
move more than about 28 CFM at the most. I think the one we have out in our training house moves about 22 on high.
That's because the guy installed it, screwed it up.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware this one will not move that much air. So be really, really careful if you're using this as part of your strategy. Also be very aware that whoever you pay to install this, they got to plug the connector onto the 40 CFM side, not the 20. Otherwise, you'll never get much air out of that. But there's 2 options there inside the little junction box on the housing. You can plug the connector into 40 CFM or 20 CFM. And if they plugged it into the 20, you're going to have a hard time getting to that and to turn it up. So be careful on that one. And then I've seen some of the agencies will install the high and the low switch. You're welcome to do that. You can hardwire it to run on high. You just have to have that control that we already talked about earlier. So any other thoughts on this one that people have run into?
Hey, just so an ERV, they also recirculate the moisture. They don't remove the moisture. Want to make sure that's clear to everybody. So if
Yeah.
you're in a home with high humidity, that's not a good option either.
Yeah, that's the E is for energy recovery, and it's supposed to like keep the moisture inside the home or keep the moisture in the air or something. So, and then we could spend an hour going into like a lot of these HRVs are designed when the temperatures outside drop below 21 degrees or whatever. They turn into an exhaust fan only and a few things, but this one does all of that as well. It's not a bad ERV. It just doesn't really work well for most of the ASHRAE strategies that I've seen us trying to use it for. So
Do you know how much this costs?
I don't know what this one costs now. I think it was $2 last time, but
How much?
More than that, I don't remember. What the
yeah, I don't know.
Bought them, they were about $300. But we have a question.
Sure.
So if the client already has just exhaust fans, but they're not vented to the outside, can we vent those to the outside without changing out the exhaust fan if our whole home ventilation is to put in an ERV?
Yes, if they have a local exhaust fan that's currently not vented to the outside, and you want to keep using it as a local exhaust fan and vent it to the outside, and then you're going to go elsewhere in the home and install a whole building ventilation system, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, not only can you do that, you should be doing that, because all of your exhaust fans for those bathrooms and kitchens, the full bathrooms and kitchens, should be vented to the outside. Your auditors, you should be checking that when you get to the house and determining whether or not they actually vent to the outside. And if they don't, so that we can comply with ASHRAE, since ASHRAE requires that all local exhaust fans vent to the exterior of the home, you should be venting them to the exterior of the home.
But make sure you understand how that plays into the calculation for your ventilation. It
Yeah.
doesn't give you a lot of credit for those fans, even though you turn around and vent them to the outside.
Yeah. This is something else it's not going to fit. I just want to make sure everybody has it in the back of their mind. This might come in handy from time to time. I've talked to a couple of folks about this, wanted to share it with the whole group. I was at a conference last summer, and Cal Steiner brought in a bunch of guys from the field and basically just had them get up and talk about some of their favorite tips and tricks. And this guy out of Washington shared this one, and I thought it was kind of cool. So he just basically has been building this little box anytime the cavity is not deep enough for him to put the fan entirely into the cavity. And I'll just flip through the slides really quickly. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. He's just showing that, I think that has a 7.5 or 8.5 inch housing on it, and there's only 6 inches of depth in the cavity. So it needs to poke out into the room a little bit. He's just showing how he's adding some structure around the mobile home hole that he cut there. And he just builds a frame, puts some OSB on it, runs the vent outside, and then he skins it with like some melamine or something. And he said he likes to use an 18 gauge pin nailer so you can fill the holes with caulk really easily. And I really like how he's trimmed it out in white. That's a pretty clean finish. Might come in handy in certain situations. One of the things he did point out in his notes was that you got to be careful that a door is not going to swing out and bonk that on the ceiling or wherever you're installing it. So, make sure you're thinking through all that stuff before you install that. But if that's helpful from time to time, that might be something valuable. And then he also acknowledged the whisper thin can often be a better option, just because it can fit inside the wall cavity. But anybody else aware of any tips and tricks or pitfalls that we should avoid when it comes to our ASHRAE ventilation?
I know for us, we've had to build it down a couple times, but also in mobile homes, especially when there's not enough room. If there's the water heater closet that jogs into it, you can install it into the wall of the water heater closet, but up high, and vent it right out above the water heater closet door.
Great one. Yeah, I've seen that in a couple of homes. It works really well. That because you're not having to deal with the thin exterior walls. So thank you. Anybody else? All right. Well, that's all I had. Thank you all for joining us. Hope you have a great day. Now I gotta figure out how to stop the meeting.
Thanks, Matt.
Well, thanks. See you guys later.
Yeah,
Thanks, Matt.